Welcome to Leath HR Group presents HR Nightmares. And this is our podcast and YouTube channel where we sit around a bunch of microphones and talk about all the stories and situations that we probably would have thrown into that book that all HR people say they're going to write. But instead, we like to sit around the mics and yak about it. So thanks for tuning in today. Today's special topic that we're going to be covering is mental health awareness. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And so I've got the ladies from the core Leath HR Group team here with me.
Gabby Plumet, hello, hello.
Hi, Amy Conway.
So thanks for being here today. Mental health is something that we're starting to get over the stigma in the workplace, but there's certainly a lot more work to do. And as we work across like different industries and see what certain companies are doing really well and what certain companies maybe are a little bit lackluster in, we've got some opinions, and we're going to share those here today with the audience. But I think where I'd like to really start is with Gabby. We rarely ever have her since she doesn't live in the same state as us anymore. This is a person that works on our team fully remotely. She is a marketing extraordinaire, graphic designer, people and culture consultant for Leath HR Group. And she spends a lot of time on our Leath HR Group technology WorkTok. So, I want you to just tell us a little bit about some of the work that you've been doing with blogs and social media posts and research in general about mental health in the workplace. Like, what's some of the stuff that you're seeing?
Yeah, for sure. So for those that don't really know about WorkTok, let me just give a little background. So WorkTok is a mobile app Lisa created this about a couple of years ago. She noticed that people were quitting because managers weren't checking in with their folks, and that communication is super important, and that is very related to mental health and burnout. So doing tons of research and really growing a passion for employees' mental health. 76%, according to Forbes, a recent survey, employees want some type of resource, and they want help, they want support from their managers. So it's just been really interesting to see and read, the people, the research is showing the people want it. So what can managers do to support their people,
Mm-hmm. I mean, it starts with asking them, what do you want, right? So I guess the Forbes survey tells us people want access to mental health resources. What does that mean? Do they want access to an EAP?
No.
But it is important if it's offered for free, right?
Do they know how to get to the EAP?
Do they know how to get to it? And then,
Yeah.
I just actually, with a client, we're doing open enrollment right now, and I thought all EAPs were kind of the same in that once you have an EAP, you can call and use they'll hook you up with any local provider, and basically it'll roll right into your health insurance. But that's not always true. And in fact, this EAP that I was working with yesterday, that's offered through this company, they only offer teledoc visits. So they don't even offer like a chance to go and sit with someone real that maybe your neighbor recommended So what do you think about EAPs in general?
I think that, Gabby and I were talking about a little bit before this, and when we think about mental health in the workplace and providing resources to our employees, we do have to think through what those resources look like. We have a certain amount of dollars to spend in benefits and what we can provide people, and they're telling us that they want those resources. But what we know about people who are struggling from burnout, depression, anxiety, other mental health related issues is that it takes a lot for them to ask for help. So if they've got to find a number, then call someone, then go through a couple interviews with therapists to see who they like, then they decide, then they got to fill out the form, then they got to do this. They're going to stop with even just calling that phone number, right? So if companies are thinking about how can we provide these solutions and provide these resources, I recommend companies get modern with the times, and those old school EAP programs, they're great for a lot of things because they encompass a lot of different things besides mental health, right? But they're not the best mental health solutions. I think there's better digital platforms. I think we're seeing a rise in mental health among a younger age demographic that are a little bit more likely to utilize those digital platforms and get on a teledoc. They want to book it online. We got to make it super easy for the employee to utilize that, or they're going to utilize an EAP program at about 3 to 5%, maybe. I mean, that's what we used to see in a company. We had a pretty good EAP program, and like 5% of people actually utilized the 5 free visits they got a year with a mental health provider. We didn't see it utilized. We saw more of it probably get utilized when people had their own therapist already, and benefits help pay for some of that. So
I definitely think if you're an employer and you're looking at an EAP program, first of all, ask your broker if one is offered for free through some of the other ancillary benefits you already offer. Like I know Principal offers one like for free, Magellan. A lot of times United Healthcare will offer their Optum EAP. One thing I do like about an EAP, especially if you work for a larger organization where there are lots of HR nightmares going on, is ask your EAP if you can do mandatory EAP referrals. So let's say, you're my supervisor. You notice that I am like, my behavior is like just deviating from normal. I'm usually always there before 8 o'clock. I'm peppy. I'm clean. I'm, have my makeup on and I'm looking ready for the day. And all of a sudden I'm dragging my butt in to work late. I look a little bit disheveled. Who knows? I've got a little bit of BO. What's going on here? But like, I'm different and something's wrong. Well, number one, of course, as a manager, we are huge advocates of checking in with your employees on a regular basis. And if you don't do it or you don't have the time, go get WorkTok. But like, number two, you can actually, with some EAPs, mandatory referrals, like actually as a contingency of employment, a condition of employment, force people to go talk to a licensed professional about what's going on in their life. Hey, Lisa, I don't know what's going on with you, but here's the couple of things that I noticed are different. You could talk to me and I could try to help, or I want to send you to go utilize a free program that we offer through the Employee Assistance Program. So that's one thing that's nice. But I mean, it all kind of gets back to just like talking to your folks.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, definitely. And with your manager I think there's such a stigma around mental health in the workplace. Nobody wants to talk about it. It's looked down upon. And I think just starting to kind of change those conversations, we're human. And I love this that Amy said in many of our workshops. We don't just drop our personal lives at the door. I don't know if you guys have seen Severance on Apple.
Oh, I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
We need to go watch it.
Yeah. Great. And it just basically you drop your personal life and then you have your work life. But it's in reality that doesn't happen. So I think managers and just the workplace in general, like realizing that we're humans first. We always say that we're humans first, and treating your employees like humans first is the first step, right? So,
but a lot of times, like we've spent a lot of time talking about, especially on the WorkTok front, talking about first responders. So everything from EMTs, paramedics, police officers, firefighters, nurses, doctors, these people do not get a chance to talk to their manager. Their manager has probably some kind of obligation to like do a check-in and see how things are going with them. But most of these managers have like 30 to 100 direct reports, and there's absolutely no way you're having like critical, crucial conversations with every single person. And so how do you get ahead of a breakdown, right? We are all human. And so when my financial instability or I'm overworked, I'm missing my kids, I'm getting divorced now, like when all these things compound on one another, and I can't even talk to the person who I'm supposed to trust, my boss, because I'm with patients or like out on the road seeing patients, and like they're also seeing patients and doing a bunch of paperwork for the government.
Or they're burned out too.
And
they're like, they don't have the capacity to even take on what and I think that's what we're hard on managers sometimes for not doing the check-in, but it's like they're probably feeling the same things as their employees. And if they don't have space to deal with their stuff, they're not going to enable others to like come to them because they're not approachable even. They're kind of saying, like, I'm dealing with the same thing you are. Like, it's the blind leading the blind out there, right?
Well, and it's such a complicated web. It's not just, there's not just one app that's going to solve the problem or a conversation that's going to solve the problem. When you're talking about just mental wellness in general, this is a focus that we need to have, whether it's an app or it's managers being trained to know where to get the resources or where to send people to. They don't have to be the end all be all, but do they know what to do when somebody comes to them and says like, I think I need a week off because I'm feeling like I'm going to snap. What do you do with that? And so I think training supervisors too, any advice on regular trainings or educating supervisors on how to deal with sticky situations when people are exhibiting signs of again, deviating from normal behavior.
Yeah. I think what's hard is that we've got to get ahead of it a little bit and not let it even get to that point. And I firmly believe that companies, managers, leaders, all of it, it's you're kind of creating the disease of burnout to begin with. So this is that always on environment that we work in. We think a lot about these businesses that are maybe customer facing and are open 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., right? 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, these kind of cyclical businesses where even when people have a day off, the business is still running. So they're getting phone calls constantly. They're people. So I think about that just being from a retail background, right? How hard that was to have a day off even. But if we don't kind of start to approach it we need to give people the space to actually take their day off uninterrupted. We need to give people their time off and encourage them to take their PTO without emailing them the whole time that they're away, right?
Yeah.
If we're not giving people space to actually be away from work when they're away from work, then they're just coming back to us. They're not refreshed. They're in work mode. That's where the burnout, a lot of it is coming from, is right now with just we've got these little phones in our hand all the time. Our work email is on them. We've got our laptop with us in our handbags all day long. We're always on. And so it doesn't give you any space to kind of decompress and download and get re-energized to be able to come back and handle all the stuff that goes on then the next day. So I think we've got to really take a look at the culture piece of it and that always on piece. And if we could address some of that, then we're going to prevent some of that burnout from even happening to begin with.
Boundaries. So managers setting boundaries for themselves to not give, not set a precedent for people who report to them, right? If I'm emailing you every other night at 10:30 at night, you're going to start to think, oh shit, I better be checking my email at 10:30. She's emailing me. She needs an answer. And I listening to you say that, I'm like, oh my God, I need to figure out a way to work in my Outlook and say, don't send this until
you can set a timer.
There's
on
a thing, right?
To set it out.
I need
send
to do
it out
that
at 7 a.m. versus 10 p.m.
We got to do that. So anyway, sorry about that.
But it is true because I work with leaders in my coaching work, and they're like, yeah, but I always say, don't check this. I know you're on PTO. I'm like, yeah, but people that are really good and dedicated, which your team is, they're going to check it whether you give them permission to not to. So if you have to not send it to begin with, right? That's where you set the example, and people are going to check it.
I saw a really cool LinkedIn post yesterday. I don't know if any of you saw it, but this woman took 2 weeks off to celebrate her 10th anniversary, and they went to Spain, and she said before she left, she told her team that I'm going to delete the Slack app and delete my work email app off my phone.
Wow.
So if you really, really need me, you're going to pick up the phone and call me, or you're going to text me for an emergency. But she said her team was super supportive.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. Loved it. Didn't call her.
Yeah.
She enjoyed her vacation. She came back feeling super refreshed. So not everybody can do that, right?
Well,
if you're a CEO or an owner
saying,
of a company, don't delete your Slack. But
I had one time ever in my last job as director of HR, and big team, big region, lot going on. I worked for a company of 75,000 people. There's somebody else you can call while I'm out of the country. Even if something chaotic and emergency is happening, I was in Indonesia. There's literally nothing I can do for you. So I spent 60 days leading up to that trip because I was gone for 2 weeks, and it was the first time in 17 years I had ever taken 2 weeks off, right?
Yeah.
And I spent 60 days preparing everybody. They probably were like, she needs to stop talking about this trip. But it was to condition them that I was not going to be available. They needed everything. It was great. My SVP, who I supported, he didn't email me until he knew I was getting back on that plane on my return trip.
You're going to need something
and
to do.
He's like, you got 9-hour layover, so you want to start emailing now? And that was perfect. Yeah, they didn't send me anything, and I didn't check it either. So even if they had, they wouldn't have gotten anything from me.
Yeah. Well, they call. If it's
somebody
a super
else.
emergency, but call someone else first.
Call someone else. Yeah. I'm in a mountain in Indonesia. I'm not answering your phone call.
What about like, okay, so let's talk about all the different, facets of mental wellness. And of course, none of us are mental health professionals, but we've been around enough situations and done enough research and written enough blogs and done enough trainings that we have like some wherewithal about what we're talking about. But like, talk about stress. Like, what kind of stresses are affecting the workplace right now? What are things that, as an employee, like how can you take ownership of your own stress and be introspective and recognize it? As a supervisor, what's your responsibility to identify stress and get people resources? And then as a company, like what should we be doing if we run a company or we're an HR department for a company to just help with mental wellness? Like, what are some good ideas?
Yeah, I want to touch on how you said that mental health is not just mental. So it's like those physical stressors, right? So physical activity that can help your stress. Maybe take a walk at lunch, or a yoga one morning. Get the group together or yoga on the lawn. And it goes back to ask your folks in the very beginning, like, hey, if we were to have some benefits or bring in a counselor to come talk to if you can't, to refer. What do you want? What's going to help you? Everyone's different. Everyone has those different stressors. So it is interesting that it's not just mental. It's also you have physical stressors. You might have financial. Right? And then you have the world stressors.
Right.
So inflation, the pandemic, whatever, so many things out there out of our control too. So
Right.
it all, and then you go to work and then you're carrying it with you. So, I definitely think it's tough, but I'm telling you, going on a walk, that is one thing that a nice 10-minute walk, if you can make a phone call, that has been such a help over the last couple of years. So I recommend that to anyone.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not certified, but a nice walk.
Yeah, but you're into yoga. You've got like your chakra like under control.
Yeah. Well, it is like the physical, the mental. Yeah, it all kind of aligns. Yeah, I've recommended to some companies and like some recent seminars we've done, like taking a look at what tools they're using and just starting to like pull back and limit and make sure it's like not asking people, because I think that creates a lot of stress, like when we're living in Teams and Slack and GroupMe and texting and email. It's like somehow like the company needs to take over and say like, we're using one tool for all communication. So like, because that little ding on that Slack is like so stressful for some people. Some people can handle it and it does not bother them, but everyone's really different.
Well, if
right?
you're a zero inbox person and you've got Slack and text and email all popping off, that can be real bad.
Yeah, it's
I like that idea.
I teach, and like teaching just even some different like time management skills and giving people permission to kind of like time block and turn off alerts for 2 hours every day, and like just some of that. Like there are things that companies can give direction and do that really would. They're small things that would make really big impacts. But employees are going to need permission in order to really feel like they can actually do it.
And then what about besides the Calm app is really popular, what about other tools that maybe companies could consider subsidizing, like a subscription? Like I love that Starbucks does like a subscription to Spotify for their baristas, right? It seems like so simple. I'm like, oh, okay. Do people really care about that? Yeah. Well, it's one less thing that a barista doesn't have to pay for that they're probably using anyway. So like the Calm app, any other good ones like that help with stress? Or
there's a lot of resources on some of the newer ones like BetterHelp, like those are some of the mental health, and you can utilize them to speak to somebody, but there's also other resources on them. I haven't done a ton of like digging on some of those, but yeah, there's quite a bit. Or even, helping pay for gym memberships and athletic, like encouraging people to kind of, physical fitness and all that stuff. That is a really good way to de-stress and to curb some of that stress and anxiety. So, companies kind of foot in the bill on that. We have a small company that we work with that's a client of ours that does pay towards that, and employees can choose where they want to go. It's not a mandatory like where they go.
I like that.
I think it's great because I haven't had that. I haven't experienced that in working, and that would have been a really great thing I would have used it too, and if companies encouraged it.
I worked for a company where they would only do the subsidy if you like attended the gym so many times a year.
Yeah, you can't put,
and then it's like, and then it was only certain approved gyms. So like that was kind of
that's what I mean. Yeah,
but like if you like yoga and you like bar and I like Planet Fitness, like just go wherever you want. Just like do something, and we'll subsidize it. I like that. The one thing I've been considering, maybe for some of the more progressive companies that we work with, is bringing in, like, I don't know, group therapy, or there's a really cool, I'm going to give a shout out to the Greater Wilmington Business Journal Coastal Entrepreneur Awards, of which we've been a winner 2 times. But there was a group called Clarity Counseling, and she came in and she was like a little firecracker, man. She's running a really successful counseling business, psychologist in town, Clarity Counseling. And she's like, hey, we're not your grandma's therapist. And I loved that. I was like, it's kind of our brand. Like, hey, we're like a modern human resource group. We're not going to do things like the old school way. But I loved her energy. And I asked her, hey, would you ever come in and do like sessions at an employer? And just, it's kind of half training, half tools in your tool belt, half group therapy kind of thing. And she was like, oh yeah, I love doing that. So even kind of offering that up to folks and kind of teeing up a topic maybe so they don't feel like, oh, I have to come in and bare my soul. That might be something for people to consider doing. And it's so cheap. What do you pay them? Like $150 an hour or something? Pay them $150 and you get ahead of maybe some issues that people were thinking about. Maybe they can stay after for a couple hours. People sign up for 30-minute slots. But that would be good.
Yeah,
dog therapy is good. Bringing dogs to work. I mean, there's research out there, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't bring mine. She's a maniac, but
she's cute.
I know. I mean, she'd make everybody happy, but we couldn't control her. But yeah, I think that, it's amazing, like, just how far, like, just doing a listening session with people could go. And I did see, like, this one Instagram reel that was really funny about HR, right? And it's like, are you going to give us an extra day off? Are you going to do this? Are you going to do this? Just they're like, no, we're going to have a webinar. And of course, my non-HR friends sent it to me. I'm like, okay, you're right. I did teach a webinar last week.
We're doing a lot of webinars.
Burnout. Yeah. But it is true. It's like, okay, so maybe it's not the webinars. Maybe it is. It's like at least we're, recognizing it. I think the webinar is a lot more for your leaders and getting them trained and getting them to understand solutions. And then for your employees, it needs a little bit more like action behind it and openness. And like they need to see a little bit more. And just creating some like listening sessions and things that don't have an agenda, don't have an outcome, don't have a topic. It's like we're always so results driven and feel like we have to get something out of everything. But sometimes we just get a lot out of just like opening up space and letting people talk.
That's super true. I think I've told the story before, but I had an awesome plant manager. His name was Ken, and he was such a nice man. And we did lunch with Ken every Friday, and we'd bring in like 10 random people every Friday to come just eat pizza with Ken in a conference room, and he had no agenda. It was like, ask me anything you want. What do you want to? You want to talk about the business? You're worried about the business? Talk about the business. You want to talk about kids? You want to talk about the race that's happening down the street at the Concord Speedway? Let's talk about that. But it was, like you were saying, just free space to chat with the leader and have an open listening session. It went very far.
I also think getting other leaders, like it's not always your direct leader, but actually getting that one leader above them and that leader above them and getting them to go and actually like speak, touch, engage, right? It's those check-ins because sometimes that direct manager, they need a little bit of support and guidance in doing this too. And if they're doing all the heavy lifting and we're not getting kind of our top level leaders engaging with, our more entry level folks, our folks that are doing more of like the functional work, then we're missing out on some of those opportunities. And that's just kind of, again, goes back to culture. Like, what's your culture like?
Right. Yeah. I love that point. I read, it was a few months ago, Prada or Gucci, a high-level fashion brand had their CEO, C-level suite leadership team was very involved with Gen Z, their new hires, very involved, and they noticed an increase in productivity. There was more ideas flowing because the Gen Z group thought that they could speak up because they had that trust and that relationship with the C-level suite. It wasn't, oh, this is my leader, I'm scared. It was more of like that trust. So I think that too, giving them motivation and your increase in productivity, all of that stuff just bring kind of like coming down to meet each other, I think I thought that was awesome. So
Trust in leadership is one of the core components of having a really great employee experience where people will stay. They feel like they belong. They feel like they have empowerment and a voice. And so if you're a small enough company where you can get the CEO in front of groups of new hires or in front of groups of employees, like the Lunch with Ken thing, like that goes so far in building that trust. So people just stick around because they genuinely like the people that they work for. And those are two core components of keeping people. It's like you want them to like who they work around, their colleagues, and you want them to like their manager or the leadership that they work for. So organizational trust. Some CEOs, they say, oh, I'm just getting too busy. I can't do it anymore. And it's like, are you really too busy to pop in for 10 minutes once a month?
Have one less meeting with your other executives.
Could you
like that's what I always say. I'm like, you could probably stand to have less meetings with the other people on the leadership team and more meetings with people lower down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I like that. What else?
Just, I think managers, I think employees, I love that the last couple of years have kind of changed our outlook on just mental health, like I see progression. I think that we still have a lot to go.
Yeah.
But it's really awesome to see how conversations are changing and the creativity that's coming out of it too, right? It's not, like you said, the benefits years ago aren't going to be the same benefits 5 years from now. So it's kind of cool, the creativity and the innovation tying in to help humans be humans. So.
Yeah, I think if employees and managers and leaders and whomever, if everyone could embrace this subject with an open door kind of philosophy behind it, which is we're open to different resources, we're open to ideas, we want to do these things. We don't have all the answers, though. So if there is something out there that you experienced or you really liked as an employee, maybe you got it from somewhere else, maybe you heard a friend, their company was doing this. We want the ideas, like come share. So it's kind of everyone doing their part and finding what the right solutions are, because there's a lot of things that are changing, a lot of new different things. And I think that that's sometimes the best way is, asking employees like, hey, like, what are you hearing? Like, what are you finding is helpful? And I think companies, just everybody being open to the fact that like the company's not going to solve it all overnight, but also giving them some grace to try and have some space to make some mistakes while they do it. And we make fun of the webinar, but at least they did did something, right? So it's still like that. It's like, let's all have some grace with it because it is a sensitive subject and it's hard for some people to know exactly, they want to do it the right way, but don't let that interfere with just getting started and doing something.
That's one thing that we've learned a lot about over the COVID-19 pandemic is just about giving employees grace, and some employers have done it better than others. But as we move forward, into 2023 and beyond, if you find that somebody is acting different or seems like they're in a funk, like rather than just say, oh, it's not my business, I'm going to avoid it. Well, it's life balance. It's no longer work-life balance. It's life balance. And so pull them aside. Ask them if they want to grab a cup of coffee. Like, hey, what's going on with you? You seem different. Like, is everything okay? And just see if you can help them. Even as a peer, like pointing them in the right direction is helpful. And it's giving them grace. It's saying like, I'm going to give you the space that you need to like get well. I'm going to, as if I'm your manager, I'm going to tell you about like our leave of absence options. I'm going to tell you about how I'm going to give you like emergency PTO, which we've never done before. But like, go take the time that you need to either get your head right, get your meds right, go take care of your, elderly mother that's in another state that you were feeling guilty about leaving and leaving your work because you have an important project. Nothing is more important like to any single individual than their own families. And so we should all be giving our employees grace when it comes to taking care of their families and putting families first. It will build tremendous trust, tremendous loyalty, but it's just like doing the right thing. So
I also think, like, I look at some of these big things that are happening right now. Like, I thought today, like, if you're a really big company out there listening to us, I hope you are, but you need to get behind stuff that's really affecting your employees. So I think of this like baby formula crisis and why it's just now hit the news. It's been going on for like well over 6 months, right? And it's a whole thing, and I'm not going to get into it, but I'm like, why are big companies not getting involved to like push some of this through and get like our government to move a little faster? And it's like, these are things I'd like to see big companies like start to get involved in on behalf of their employees. And I'm sure some have, right? But I think that it's like, are we looking for those ways? Because I can't imagine how much your new moms with little babies at home are being able to come in and actually focus on work right now if they can't find food for their child, right? So it's like stuff like that.
We know you have a lobbyist that's on retention for at least $1 million
how have we
a year.
not solved this already? So and there's a lot of examples like that that are happening all across the world. It's like companies are so laser focused on what they're doing that there's stuff out there that are the outliers that are really causing some major friction for their employees that they could maybe take a stand and help kind of solve some of these things.
Also, the daycare expenses are just like astronomical, right? We're spending like 20, 30 grand a year on our child to go to daycare so we can go work and get those benefits. And so if you're making, 30, 40, 50 grand, you're basically just doing it for the benefits, right? So if you have folks that are, making under six figures, offering, and you're a decent sized company with benefits, like offering things like a flexible spending account for dependent care where people can put up to $5,000 away pre-tax.
Yeah.
And so you're saving at least the tax on $5,000. Now the government needs to get like with the times. No one's spending $5,000 a year on daycare. Come on. So like maybe put the lobbyists on that. That'd be a nice another thing to like put the lobbyists on.
We have a whole
formula
list of that.
All right, that's another episode. It's just working moms, working parents, and just the expenses associated with getting your kids into reliable, safe care while you're so you can focus on work, fed and safe and under someone else's care. But it costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
So I have a friend that has benefits it works for Big Four accounting, has great benefits. And to get people back into the office, they decided, well, this is really in New York because transportation's hard up there. A lot of them live in New Jersey. And they're spending well over $100 to get to the office.
Yeah.
They came out and said, hey, we'll pay for your transportation, we'll pay for your childcare and your pet care. So I was like, wow, like they're getting very creative with trying to get people back into the office. And I think that's great. I mean, especially well over $100 to get to work.
Yeah.
To ride the train, So.
That's so true. I mean, I just think that, companies need to take every year a really hard look at the utilization of the different programs and the benefits and the offerings. And it's like, you got one bucket of money and we get that. You can't always allocate more and more money to that bucket, but make sure that you're using that bucket of money in the best ways possible that help the most amount of people, right? And sometimes we have other things that like we hold on to because they just kind of roll over every year, but that's really not what the employees are utilizing. So then take that money and put it somewhere else.
Yeah. The transportation cost is a big thing, especially right now. I mean, with gas, people commuting in. I mean, if you could take the train for free, you might be more apt to not get in the car and drive. So.
Oh my gosh, I miss living in like public transit cities. I would rather never drive if I had to.
Oh my God. Well, hey, I think we've been at this for a little while, so let's go through and at least answer one question that was submitted from the audience, if you guys want to. How does that sound? Okay. Now, this is a fun one. So after COVID, our offices reopened, and we have offices. This particular person has offices in New Jersey, New York, Florida, and North Carolina. However, several people still refuse to come back to the office. They claim their spouse is at high risk. Others want to work from home, again, also probably because they see other people saying, I'm not coming in. I got a high-risk guy over here. So why, if they can work from home, I could still work from home. Can they take action against us if we do not let them work from home? And would it be best to offer the same option to work at home to everybody?
Well, I would say if you're considering making a work from home option, that obviously means that your business can support it and warrant it. So I think you got to listen to your people. Are you willing to have 20% of your people quit because you put your foot down and you dig into the sand? You say, absolutely not.
Yeah.
You have to come back into the office. I don't think it's worth that. I think there's other options. Are there hybrid options? Are there some positions that can be more remote than others? So it sounds like they're willing to like entertain the idea. So if you're willing to entertain it, I would not challenge. I would not make it a thing greater just so you like win that battle, right? Now, as far as like forcing employees back into the office and can they take action, I am not an employment attorney. I would consult with one, but I think it depends probably what your policies say, what your business says. I don't feel like it's something that's actionable. I don't know. I don't know that you could take a lot of action from like a legal standpoint. If your business is, we need you back in the office.
Yeah. It's a private business.
Now,
the owner can say whatever they want.
the medical accommodation stuff aside, but
Right.
if nobody has any kind of accommodation or need that we would need to make an accommodation for, I don't think there's any like legal repercussions from an employment standpoint.
Take the good advice that you gave off the table, which is if you're considering it, yeah, you probably should do it.
Yeah.
But like take that good advice off the table and let's just get back to like the hardcore, can they take action against us? No, if you're a private business, as long as, it's an all hands kind of policy. Hey guys, we decided July 1st.
Yeah.
It looks like COVID stats are down. The community is doing well. We think it's better for our company from a cultural standpoint or whatever the reason is. Everybody get back in the office.
Yeah.
Unless you have a documented medical accommodation.
Medical accommodation.
Documented. If you don't come back in and you don't have a documented medical accommodation, I can fire you.
Well, I think it's grounds for, I think as long as you give a reasonable notice of saying this is when it's happening, it's a couple days, you got to check your state guidelines or whatever that may be. Yeah, I don't think there's any legal action.
Yeah. Also, it's the right thing to allow. Let's say I don't have a medical accommodation documented, but I'm telling you, like, hey, man, like my husband, he had cancer last year. Like, for real, you can put me in that spot. Then you probably want to just like, again, use some compassion and grace and say, yeah, you know what? I'm not going to put you in that spot. So don't come in. But could you technically put him in that spot? Yeah, you could. You could say, well, if you're so worried, then when you come in, you need to just like wipe your space down and put on an N95. You could say that. I don't recommend
You could, but let's be very clear to the audience. That is not our recommendation from good HR professionals.
No. But
that like to keep good talent.
Right.
Yeah.
If you want the person to quit, then go ahead and tell them to strap on an N95 and come on back in. But I think the main point there is if you can do it and you've done it before, and it wouldn't put you in some kind of like bad business place to let everybody work remotely or give them that option, then just friggin' do it. Row with the current, don't row against the current.
Yeah, because if you don't, you're just the people who want to leave, they're just now looking for jobs that will allow them to be that way. So if you don't allow it, you're just going to have a lot of turnover. So that's kind of what you're facing.
And we're still at
inevitable.
The lowest or like almost the lowest unemployment of all time. So
yeah, it's hard to find great people. So I do what you can to keep them.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. Good.
Cool.
That's a good one.
Yeah. You want to do another one?
Yeah. I think there was one more kind of shorter one.
Normally payroll hits first thing in the morning on a payday. Okay. I have been with the company for 4 years. Over the 4 years, there have been about a dozen times that our pay hits either at night or the following day. Are there any repercussions for the leadership team? I have bills scheduled on payday, and when our paycheck does not hit when it's supposed to, I am hit with late fees. What power do we as employees have, and can we do anything about it?
I love this question.
Well, don't schedule your bills the exact same day of payday. Like, give it 2 days, because here's the thing. It's not only payroll, it's a whole banking system.
Right.
So that is 100% dependent on what bank you use. If it's the same bank that the company used, typically it goes in right away.
Yeah.
If it's not, if it's like a credit union or something different, it could take 48 hours to process. So like a company can't get that granular on that. They give you what the paydays are. They release the paydays. If it's their paydays on a Monday and that Monday is Memorial Day, you're not getting paid on Memorial Day because the bank's not releasing your funds. The company posted payroll on time. The bank isn't releasing the funds. At least, I mean, unless I'm missing something of the story, but that's really what the big issue is. The company, when they run payroll, usually it gets posted by like, my other company, we ran payroll on the 1st. It posted for our payroll on midnight on the 3rd. Payday was the 5th. Right.
Yeah.
And and usually if you had direct deposit, it went in on the 4th. Right. It built a buffer in. So a lot of companies do that already. So I would say
they need to go look at the policy. So first of all, does the company have a policy in the handbook?
Yeah.
And most companies do, and you should have a policy about when do employees get paid. And in fact, it should actually be in every employee's offer letter when they can expect to be paid and for what pay period. But if they're not following their own policy, then what I would recommend is bringing it up like, hey, here's what your policy says. Here's 10 different examples of how it's actually played out over the last 4 years. And it may just be a matter of like employee communications that, hey, this week or next week, we usually get paid on Monday at 7 a.m. Just want to let everybody know you're going to get paid at Tuesday at 5 p.m. And here's why. Like, as long as there's communications, but I'm with you. Like, don't schedule all your bills to come out on the same day that you're getting paid.
Yeah.
In case something happens.
Yeah. For me, I always just think like, ooh, give yourself a 24-hour buffer on that. But I would agree, like, it could be that too, like, leadership isn't aware, right? People who are making a little bit more in salary, like maybe aren't scheduling those bills. They're not living paycheck to paycheck as much as more of our entry level, mid-tier, leaders. So they may not personally be realizing the same kind of thing that someone who does need that paycheck immediately to pay their rent on time realizes. So sometimes it's just bringing that up, and people may not realize how bad it is. Could be maybe we have someone who's not timely running payroll. I don't know how large the company is, right? So I would definitely bring it up. Repercussions, I don't know about. I wouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about, hey, I'm supposed to get paid on the 1st, and then by the 15th, I still don't have a paycheck.
That's a problem.
Then that's a Department of Labor issue.
Right. It depends what state you're in, too.
But they'll probably also want to know, like, hey, did you let anyone know that you never get your paycheck? Oh, no, I didn't know. I just want to complain to the Department of Labor so they get in trouble. Well, that's not great. So
I would,
got an obligation to bring it up.
So I think what we recommend is, notify that it's a problem, and change your bills maybe to the day after payday. If you can.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I am so happy that Gabby was with us today.
Yeah.
Ooh, good to be back.
Yeah. Back in Wilmywood. Anyway, thank you. Mental Health Awareness Month is May. If you're an employer, make sure that you share this episode with all of your folks. And follow Leath HR Group on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Gabby's doing a really awesome job on our TikTok. So go check it out. What's the best compliment you got this week on TikTok?
It's real content. They were waiting for
real content.
Yep. Hashtag real content. Yeah.
I absolutely love that. So follow us, connect with us individually. Tell people where they can find you.
Yeah, Gabrielle Plumet on LinkedIn.
Lisa Leath on LinkedIn.
And Amy Conway on LinkedIn.
Hope you guys have a great day. Thanks.